Foundation CTC meeting for the 5th of October 2016. And let's get straight into it. So let's do a stand-up of who's here. Anna, are you here?
Yeah, but I have nothing really to report, so I pass it right to Bradley.
I went to TC39 last week. We got some leeway to adjust the spec to our needs, but I'm still in discussions for some of it. So I need to send the PRs to TC39 and see how that goes.
Colin, I think you're next. We don't have Ben or Chris.
I also don't have much to report this week, just issues and pull requests.
That would make Evan.
Yeah, I worked a little bit on improving the commit linter, and then submitted a PR yesterday for improving performance and process next tick by like 10-20%. Next is Jeremiah.
Yeah, so today I've got the exist sync fs.exist sync undeprecation merged, which has been signed off by many people and came up here multiple times. And then other random PRs and issue stuff. I don't think there's anything else notable. Tracy's next.
All right, let's see. So we've got the outreachy application drive in full swing. If you know folks who are eligible, that would be rad to send them our way. The information is up on nodejs.org/, I think, outreachy. And I'm sure the mentors will express this later on, but we've got the suggested projects up, and supporting those mentors will be awesome if anyone is interested in helping with that. We still have that issue open under the CTC. And let's see, we met late last week to talk about Code and Learn and Collaboration Summit and how we can set up the Austin event for success with that. So stay tuned for issues that you all can help contribute to make that better.
I don't believe we have Fyodor here. So that would make Michael Dawson. Are you here?
Yes, I just joined. So I spent some time, I'm trying to remember since the last meeting, spent some time doing miscellaneous PRs, reviews, and lands, fixed up an issue with one of our V8 tests that was running. That's about all that comes to mind right this minute.
Julian.
Nothing much except investigating some specific issues, both on the build side and on the CI platform.
Michael Rogers.
Hey, I'm mostly just working on the new budget for 2017 for the foundation. I was also at T39 last week with Bradley getting stuff done. Super productive, looking into ways for me to be able to go longer term as well and kind of keep things moving. And that's about it.
Brian White.
Looks like you filled out the stand-up in absentia.
I don't believe Ali. Is Ali here? No. So then that's Jen. No update, just observing. Myself, which I haven't filled out because I've been typing for other people. So a little bit of foundation stuff, some build work. Where I'm helping, well, I'm not really helping. Johan is refactoring all of our Ansible stuff, so I'm watching on his stuff and testing some of it out. That PR should land soon, hopefully. It's a pretty big refactor. And back onto the LTS README rework, really would like to get that landed, but there's some more stuff to be added to that since the last time it was reviewed. Seth Thompson, are you with us?
Yes, hi there. Let's see, the main updates on our end, Async await is still on track to ship in V8 version 5.5, although we haven't reached the branch date quite yet, so that's still unconfirmed officially. And V8 inspector work ongoing, and yeah, I think those are the main updates from this last week.
I don't believe we have Shieki here. So Stephen Loomis. Oh, he's away today, he says. ICU 58 will be out in a couple of weeks, and we'll have an updated PR at that time. Miles.
Hello. So I've been working on V4X backporting, defining the outreachy project that I'm going to mentor on, fixing some regressions in canarying the gold mine, and working on a new communication plan for LTS dates. Next up is the fourth eye.
Hi. I was sick the whole week. I've been recovering from my fever, so nothing much to update from me.
Next is Trevor.
I finished. Worked on some performance regressions for the Async Hook EP or PR. I'm almost done with it, so that it will be feature complete with what the EP outlines, and then we'll be doing tests and API documentation. Next is Rich.
I've been working to put together the CTC meeting rotation proposal with a lot of help from Nikita. And doing that was more tedious than I could have possibly imagined. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. Not the tedium, but the actual proposal. I've also I sent the, as everybody who's on the CTC list knows, we've been talking about two-factor authentication for collaborators. Again, a lot of help from Nikita on that, and reached out to collaborators who don't have two-factor authentication and asked them about the possibility or any obstacles to turning it on. And other than that, lots of miscellaneous issue tracker, commit activity, helping some Node-to-do type folks get their first commits in, and fixing a test here or there, finding that Michael Dawson was not on the CTC email list and adding him. And
okay, well, that's good to know. So if I didn't hear some of the messages, it wasn't my fault. Yeah.
That's right. Anyway, let's see here. Next up is Josh. Hey, Josh, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you guys? So not so much for me. I was actually off most of the week, but we did just hold the diagnostics working group meeting, which was nice and productive. So look for the notes on that. Yeah, and that's it. Back
Any highlights from that meeting?
Some pretty cool tracing stuff that the V8 team is working on.
All right, sounds cool. I'll check it out.
Yeah.
Okay. Previous meeting review. We talked about the scheduling meetings thing, which we'll talk about again this week. We had a bit of a talk about node module version for ABI number, and we moved that back to GitHub, but it was I think the proposal stood, and there wasn't any major objections there, so it's just a discussion. Then we did a little bit of version 7 release and version 6 LTS planning discussion stuff. Not hugely eventful meeting. So this week we're going to jump straight in and look at the first of all supported platforms list, which is pull request number 8922. This went across to the build working group. Johan actually did most of the work here to put this together, collaborating with the libuv team, and also looking at some of what V8 supported, coming up with this list. It's had a bit of discussion, and yeah. So has everybody had a chance to look at this that wants to look at it? I don't believe there's anything controversial in there except a couple of nits of typos or grammar.
Is it pretty much, I'm just looking now, I hadn't seen that. Is it pretty much what was in the working gist?
Yes, the table has not changed. It's I've just edited some of the text, bringing it across just to just some copy editing.
Can you clarify what there's that bit that I don't understand about? Since we rely on some dependencies, we need to adopt their supported platforms and potentially add to their list. So that says that if V8 and libuv both support it, we support it, or what does that mean exactly?
Hang on a minute. That's is that you quoting directly from there? Oh yeah, we rely
I
on.
can. It's under input is the header.
Yep.
It says we rely
Right.
on a few dependencies that make us who we are. Most importantly, V8 and libuv. We therefore need to adopt their supported platforms and potentially add to their list based on test and/or release coverage.
I think it could be worded better. I'm pretty sure it means that if they don't support a platform, like we kind of adopt that by default, and if we want support for that, like we need to add it ourselves.
Yeah, I think that needs clarification. But yeah, basically that, and we're also constrained by them, so it goes two ways.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Other than that, I'm really happy with the doc.
Yeah,
The fact is that most of our supported platforms list is, I think it's narrower than both libuv and V8. So we're not like we're more constrained by them than we are the other way around.
Yeah, it ought to say that we're a subset because of the constraint. Well, it does say we actually add to their list, yeah.
Yeah, that's the confusing part. So I mean, I would recommend clarify that, or
Yep.
or even consider just removing it. I don't know, up to you really. But yeah, that's the only thing I found confusing.
Yeah, removing it might be the way to go. Okay, no, I'll do something about that. So, are there any objections to this list as it stands? This can be edited along the way, and as I said in the PR, it is targeting version 6, which is probably going to be the same as version 7. It needs to be changed for version 4, so we'll have to backport it. So I'll ping the CTC again when we do the backporting. Okay, well, doesn't sound like there's any objections in here, but if there are concerns, objections, then you've still got time to go into that issue and say something before it lands. But as it stands, there's no major objections except for the wording of the text around the list. Okay, easy. Next one is this is James's issue, but I think we can still talk about it. Intel, consider deprecating Intel.V8 break iterator, and this comes from the V8 team. The summary here is that they want to deprecate it because they're moving towards a more formal TC39 language proposal for an Intel.segmenter API, which would make this thing redundant. Little Dan from the V8 team has said that he hopes to deprecate it in a future version.
So yeah, I think the big thing here is just that as soon as possible, we want to get any native developers not using this API so that we don't break anything, and basically trying not to expose it to our native community, native add-on community, because we're moving towards a standard that can actually be supported long term.
It's exposed in JavaScript.
It's a JavaScript API.
Yeah, we do expose it in JavaScript, but we probably shouldn't.
We expose it because V8 does. Like we're not actually doing anything here. It's V8 that's doing it, I believe.
Yeah, but we tend to just expose everything that V8 exposes, and I think what they're saying is that they don't want to support this API going forward. And I mean, we need to provide our users an alternative to that API. So I think the proposal is that we actually just like implement the spec shim now and don't expose the V8 portion.
And the API exposed by V8 is configurable, so it can be removed. So.
So I had two comments in there. One is that it's before TC39, the new API, but that suggests it could take quite a while to get in through that whole process. And the other thing is the uncertainty around when it will be removed. So he says, I hope to remove it entirely from a future version of V8. When might that be? Because the impact here is we've got version 7 coming up. Is it possible that this thing will be removed in V8 5.5, 5.6, which are versions that we may land in version 7, Node version 7? And if so, then that would be a breaking change in the API, and we'd have to backport. We'd have to polyfill the old API, or is it something that might be removed where we can plan for version 8, because it'll be removed in V8 version 6.0. So it's the uncertainty that I have a concern about here, because it's, yeah.
I don't know if we have a great answer on that. I know that, so Daniel from V8 team is pushing both the standard and I think basically has to maintain this API. And so he wants to get rid of it as soon as possible, but I don't think that per V8 policy, they can actually put in the new replacement API until it makes it into a certain stage in the spec process. So depending on how quickly that moves through the spec process, then this will get removed before or after that, right?
Yes, and they also discussed they wanted to remove it immediately, but something like 0.02% of websites use it. So they can't remove it until that drops some. So
I don't know about that. They might be able to remove it before that. I think that the main thing is that they have to have an alternative for people to use when they do remove it.
So
historically, they haven't removed stuff that's greater than triple-digit precision.
Seth, do you have something to say here on this?
Yeah, so I'm trying to ping Daniel right now to get his most recent take on this. I think that generally we will wait until a feature at TC39 is to stage 3 before we implement it. As opposed as for sort of removing Intel V8 break iterator, we rely on a couple things, including usage, but we don't have an absolute number. I would say in this case, yeah, I guess I'm not sure how much in Dan's mind he's gating the removal on the success of Intel segmenter, but I can follow up. And I mean, yeah, I guess I don't know if anybody else brought it up, but certainly I don't know how this interacts with or how support on the Node side interacts with the requirement to use full ICU, because I believe it's only exposed if full ICU is in place,
Yeah,
which
that's
is not
correct.
the default.
I'm not suggesting I have trouble with us removing it. It's just that the timing uncertainty is a bit strange. If we had a signal that said, yeah, this is going to be removed in 5.5 or 5.6 or whatever, some soon version or near future version, then great, we could go ahead and do this and it would fit our timeline better. But if it's like we'd like to remove it, but that may not happen until 6.5, then I'm not sure if it's
My impression is that it's a bit more aspirational than a concrete plan right now, but let me confirm with Dan and see if I can get some more information on that.
Okay, so James is driving this. We'll leave it in his hands to push forward more and move back to that issue, discussion in that issue 8865. So let's move on for this meeting. And thanks for the input there, Seth. That's really helpful. Next issue is
just mention one quick note that I think part of the reason there hasn't been activity on the bug is Dan is out of office this week, so, and next week I believe too.
okay. Cool, thank you. We'll make sure James knows about that. The next one is pull request number 8419, which is multiple listen events fail silently. This one is who tagged this? James tagged it. Anna, would you like to tell us about this one because you're involved in that conversation?
I don't know. James isn't here, right?
No, he's not.
Okay.
It
I
seems like
think
a good
he
idea.
put it on. I think he was the one who put it on the agenda.
Yeah,
and
he
I've
did.
been away for the last couple of days, so.
I'm pretty sure
That's
he
fine.
added it because it's a potentially breaking change, but there was the request to get it into 7.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I can give a rundown then if need be.
Yeah, that might be good.
Okay, so it's simply that you can call listen twice on a socket. So on the server, net.server, if you're listening, you can call it again, and it will be a silent failure. But in doing so, it'll change the connection key and pipe name. So it's obvious. It's an obvious bug. So the discussion here was around solution, whether it should emit an error or something else. So the pull request here, which has so far been +1, I think it's fine. Like there's no objections to it. It's simply to track whether it's been listening or not. And if you've called it, then you get it emits an error event with an error that says listen method has been called more than once, and the code is manually added to be address in use. So that's a manual code that's added. So that is the proposal.
So yeah, one thing I'm not exactly sure about, and why I think I don't have expressed a really strong opinion on that PR is, James had a PR open a while ago. I'm gonna post the link here. It's 8294, where he documented that calling listen multiple times would actually reopen the server. And I read it as something like, if you call listen again, it will work, just with a different part or so. And that didn't seem to be the case, so I'm a bit confused about that.
Right. That would be listening on something that's already closed by reading that change, even though it doesn't say it explicitly. But you're right. The conflict might be that this PR, I think, tracks. I don't think it actually tracks. We're not listening anymore, and listen can be called again, because it's got this variable called listen has been called. It's just a boolean, and it's only set to true. It's never set to false again. So that does sound like a conflict.
From what I read, it should be set to false if it's closed.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, in close it's set to false.
Yeah, right.
I wonder, is that the only way that sockets can be closed with the close method called?
I doubt it.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering here.
I would actually think it is the only way, at least for listening sockets.
Okay, look, I'm gonna.
Yeah.
Gee, that's a tricky one. This might have to come back on the agenda next week. We'll let James drive it through, but I'll mention that it's gone back. for discussion, and I'll drop in that note about the other issue that you mentioned, Anna. Oh, sorry, I've just lost that.
Before we
Noel,
move
what
on,
was
does
that?
anyone have any particular objections against this?
I guess
No,
do we accept December major into 7 at this point?
That's the reason it's in this meeting.
Yeah.
Well, has anything been run against the ecosystem? I guess that one's going to be a bit more difficult to check for.
It's very difficult, and the fact that you can trigger bad behavior by doing this suggests that if somebody is actually using this, then this is like it's like that XKCD one where the guy uses his CPU fan to do something in Emacs.
Pulls down the space bar, then makes the CPU overheat, and the fan kicks in. Yeah,
that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah, good point.
So yeah, let's punt this to next week when James can be here for it. I think is my vote.
Yeah. Okay. Let's do that. It'd be easier.
Quick FYI: if you run listen twice on the same server object, what happens is that it overrides the _handle property. So basically, the user will lose all access to the handle and can never again close it, but it will still sit open.
That's pretty bad.
I guess the question: can the new one that they've got? Can they continue to accept connections on that? Like, is it that they get a new one they can get exceptions on, or are they then broken from that perspective as well?
You mean after close has been called?
Well, no, after they've done the second listen, you basically lost the first handle, but if you have a new one and you can continue, you can get connections on that.
This pull request is about rejecting the second listen if it's already listening.
Yeah, I think like you might actually get an error from trying to listen to the same socket or same address. I don't know. Anyway, we should take that back to the issue.
Yeah, I think we do ourselves a disservice by not putting this in the issue and having the conversation here, because we're just going to have the same conversation next week.
Yep, that's right. And so for the sake of productivity, let's move on. So next one is this scheduling meetings. It's an issue in the CTC repo, issue number 14. And Rich, you have done an amazing job with this. Time zones are the worst. So tell us where we're at here.
So I'm just going to cut right to the latest, greatest proposal, which I will paste a link into the sidebar. It should be there, I hope. Yes. This is the least terrible proposal I could come up with. All possibilities are bad. It's picking the least bad of the options. So talked about this in private email. We've talked about it in the issue tracker. So I guess if there's more to say, I guess we can say it here and now. But ultimately, I think I was hoping that we would be able to either agree to give the schedule the next 4 meetings that I put in that link that I just posted. Give that a shot for 4 weeks, and then evaluate how it is or isn't working and what might be better or worse, or if we're just going to shoot this down and move on and try to figure something else out. So that's where it's at.
So that's for next week. It would start October the 12th.
Yes.
3 a.m. Okay. I'll unlikely be there for that one, but that's fine.
That's okay. We'll do everything asynchronously. It'll be amazing.
Okay, before we jump into next week, shifting the time, are there any objections to doing that? Because it's really about next week. So So next week is going to be UTC 4 o'clock, which is
4 o'clock p.m.
4 o'clock p.m. Sorry, yeah, which is US West Coast 9 a.m. US East Coast midday. No, okay. That should be much nicer for people in Europe, and also India. It's 9:30 p.m. So that's much more manageable, I think. Cool.
That went down with way less discussion than I thought it was going to. Go ahead, Sakta Priyan.
Yeah, 9:30 p.m. would be far better than 1:30 a.m.
Thanks for the confirmation.
Okay, so that meeting is yours next week, Rich. So cool.
Okay.
Make it so. Easy.
Thanks, everyone.
Surprising. So general version 7 release planning and LTS and discussion. The only thing I have to add in here before anyone else does is that the LTS working group agreed last week that we'd put out version 6 LTS a week before, which makes it, is that sometime next week? It's not next week, is it? Or the week after? The 18th?
I'm pretty sure it's the 18th.
18th, which is Tuesday, so that's not next week, the week after. So that's when version 6 would go LTS. And then the week after that, we would aim for version 7.
If we're aiming for the LTS release on the 18th, we should probably try to get in a release on the 11th that has all of the Semver minor stuff that we're looking to get in beforehand.
Yeah, that's a good call. I was thinking about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So who wants to do that? Who wants to do a release next Tuesday?
Jeremiah, do you want it since I took the last one?
Did you take? You took the security release, right?
Yeah.
I can take this one.
Okay. If you can, I can. So either way.
Okay. So Jeremiah, you'll do a release next week, and if you need to palm that off to Evan, make sure you do that sooner rather than later. And then one of us will do version 6 LTS. I'm happy to put up my hand for that, unless somebody else is really keen to jump in. And then version 7, is there any on the V8 side? Are we looking to be on track for V8 5.4 going gold before the 18th? No, before wasn't the 18th, the week after that, the 25th. Everything looking good there, Seth?
I think Ali is the one working on actually merging into the node tree, so I'm not certain of the latest status there, but I haven't heard anything negative.
Okay, so on track. Anything else to discuss about the release planning here? I still think we haven't got somebody or somebody's putting up hands for helping with or even driving version 6 LTS backports and releases. We can't just say, hey Miles, you do that as well. I don't think Miles wants to do that, and we also just need a team anyway. So we're still looking for people to put their hands up for that.
Alternatively, now this would be up to Miles. We could do a switch, so maybe Miles does V6 then, and someone else can do V4. V4 from now on will probably get a little less commits going to it, so it might be a little bit easier, or it might be more difficult. I don't really know. Do you have any thoughts on that, Miles? It looks like you're unmuted, but we can't hear you.
Waiting for Miles to reconnect. Oh, there he is.
Hey, thanks for being patient. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, excellent. So, yeah, like, I mean, I kind of have some mixed feelings here, and I think that this will be a broader question for LTS. I think as long as V4 is still in active, that we have a a commitment to actively be making sure that we're going through everything. Now, I do think some of the stuff that we talked about in this week's LTS working group meeting about tooling that can automate some of this process will make the whole process better. But I kind of feel like we need to be giving for still the same attention that it's been getting as long as it's in, this window. There will be a lot more stuff that needs to be backported to 6, but a lot of that stuff will be a lot clearer as far as what it is and when it should be backported. I think the biggest thing that we could probably do, and maybe I'll mull over this before next week's meeting, is just maybe coming up with a better process as far as how things end up in staging. And this is something that I think we need to be doing for current as well, rather than just kind of like getting everything in there at the last minute, and just kind of coordinating how we're working with that staging repo, the staging branch. But I think, if all of us, at least on the CTC, are making an active effort to label things and backport things, the load of this can be distributed in a much nicer way.
I think I kind of disagree about the fact that while V4 isn't active, it needs to have the same amount of activity the entire way through. From the start, there was always, at least in I don't know how written down it is, but there was always some amount of explicit understanding that over time that would become harder and harder to backport as much as possible, and so activity would drop, and that was an okay thing. But there would still be more activity than maintenance, where maintenance is pretty much okay. If there's a security issue or something's really critically broken in this branch specifically, then we go fix it. Otherwise, we don't really backport anything to maintenance.
Yeah. Well, I mean, most of the work is literally just going through and auditing the backlog that hasn't had labels put on it. And that was the kind of thing that we were talking about could maybe be audited in a nice way.
Right.
But I found a non-trivial number of things that would have just gotten left if we didn't do that constant.
Spencer, do not touch the screen.
Thanks for that, Rich.
I'm not upset. Just in the middle of a meeting.
Or is that Trevor?
I think that's Trevor.
I think you need to mute.
I muted him. It's okay. Continue.
So I mean, I think we should talk about this a little bit more offline, and thinking about ways to prepare this. But I'm a little bit uncomfortable with not auditing everything, or at least not having some automated process to audit, because the things that would get missed, sometimes even if they seem trivial, aren't super trivial. But again, I think this is something that a little bit more work on our end, combined with some tooling, can make the workload a lot lighter.
Miles, I'd be interested in helping on that tooling.
Excellent. So let's chat tomorrow about that.
Works for me.
Loop me in if you would, please.
Great. Okay, so we're hurtling towards version 7. Things are getting ticked off. My only concern about version 7 now is actually this V8 break iterator thing. So that's going to probably be, there's going to be a bit more pressure to get that that resolved within the next week, maybe. So if you can, it might be good to tune into the discussion and see how it resolves. Because if we need to deprecate it or remove it, then we probably should be doing it with version 7. But yeah.
I got
and
a bit more context on the You were talking about the Intel V8 Iterator?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just got so as I mentioned, Dan's out and he's the one driving this whole process. But the language from somebody else in the language team, they're pretty sure that the plan is to not deprecate anything before Intel segmenter reaches more conclusiveness within TC39. But everybody is, not that we have any say, but everybody would be fine with Node deprecating it earlier, and it may just be a forward-looking thing to do, given that it's already only usable for a subset of Node users. So, anyways, yeah, I don't know if that helps make anything more concrete.
That does help actually.
Yeah.
I'm pasting that into the issue now.
For subset, is that because it's only available with full ICU?
Yeah.
Ooh, okay. Good call.
Okay, is there anything else about V6, V7 anyone would like to discuss? There's also V010 that's in the mix here if anyone has anything to say.
Does anyone have anything to say of 0.10? I have a couple things on 7.0. Okay then, looking at the 7.0.0 milestone on Node.js issue tracker, there are currently 6 open issues still, and none of them have been discussed today. So I just want to give people an idea what's there so that we can get this thing cleaned out a bit. There's a discussion on OpenSSL 1.0.0 planning that was opened by Rod close to a year ago. Wow. There's a potential thing to update inspector ready message to be vendor agnostic. Currently it prints out Chrome. I'm not sure if there's anything else that's up to speed with the inspector.
Actually,
to
we did discuss that briefly in our meeting today.
Okay.
We had a couple possibilities. I think we concluded to go with the message, but add a line for now pointing to a wiki page. But there's a few options.
Okay, so we can move forward to that.
Yeah, no big deal.
There's some planning for V7 and the rollover for V6 to LTS by James. There's some Node.js event listener bug that's for some reason tagged as 7.0. Okay. Work in progress deps upgrade libuv to 1.10.0 by Sagul. I'll follow up on that. I'll follow up on all of these in the issue, but just to keep people in the loop. And also there's another thing back on the OpenSSL 1.1.0 thing. There's a pull request for that, but it doesn't seem to be either working or something right now. Okay. Does anyone have anything else?
I will say that 1.1.0 support is not going to happen. It's not going to. Sorry, we're not going to ever. Well, in the near future, we're not going to have 1.1.0 for OpenSSL support in Node. But what we may have is the ability to compile against it. That would be ideal, particularly for Linux distros that are upgrading to 1.10. There's a pull request for that. But I don't believe that's in any way a blocker for version 7. It was just put on that milestone just to make it fit somewhere. But that pull request could land at any time. It doesn't have to wait for a SemVerb major. I have a note then about V010, which is that there's a new version of NPM version 2 out that finally fixes the license document. We're still shipping the old license, I believe, in Node version 10 and 12 with the version of NPM version 2 that we're shipping there. So there's a question about whether we want to ship another version of at least V10, 0.10 with an updated NPM that has the fixed license. Is it important enough?
I'm not hugely opposed to it, but it doesn't.
There's an issue in
seem
the LTS
particularly
repo for
compelling
discussion on
either.
this. If anyone wants to weigh in on that, then go to the LTS repo. There's an issue there where we can discuss it. Otherwise, this can be deferred to the LTS working group. It's not. We don't have to waste time here on it. Anything else about 0.10, V6, or V7 before we close up? No. Okay, let's move on to a QA time. Q&A for people listening in via the live stream. If you are listening and have anything you'd like the CTC to discuss, answer, or it's just some input for us, feel free to drop a comment in YouTube there, or you can do it in the issue for this meeting in the Node.js repo, or ping one of us on IRC. So we're going to we'll just wait a minute for the stream to catch up.
In the meantime, where are the next meeting dates?
So the next meeting, for other meetings. Oh, that's a good idea. I'll read that. Upcoming meetings. The CTC next week on the 12th, but that's shifting to UTC 4 p.m. TSC is tomorrow, same time slot as this. There's a build working group next week, which is the 11th, whatever day that is. Diagnostics is first week of November, so that's still got another month to go. LTS meeting, not going to be on the 3rd, but that'll be. Actually, I don't know when that one will be. I think are we 2 weekly for that one, so it won't be. It won't be next week. It'll be the week after.
Alex asks, hey, could we get a comment on the stability of V6 at this point? Just want to get a sense of that for the purposes of upgrades, etc.
Well, I think as discussed, I think the answer to that is simply that we're going to have a standard V6 release next Tuesday. That's just going to be like as V6 as current, and then the Tuesday afterwards, we're going to be dropping into LTS, and that's when the stability push will start, and you should expect it to be as stable as the V4 releases. So if you're planning on upgrading to V6 LTS, then you probably should be testing it now, and unless it's not urgent for you. But it's worth testing it now. There's nothing huge going in there that's going to upset the apple cart.
As a note, next week's V6 release will probably, almost certainly be a minor, but there shouldn't be too much in the way of new features that land on that. So.
Yeah, we don't have any outstanding regressions, do we?
I think the last couple of V6 releases have been pretty good in that fact. We had some earlier on in the V6 life cycle that we had to get releases out for afterwards due to regressions introduced. But we've been looking pretty good lately, I think.
I think there is one regression in the V8 inspector. I can't remember what it is.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. That's been around since 6.4.0.
Okay.
I don't know if we've been able to reproduce it or something. Yeah, I don't remember what the circumstances are.
V8 inspector, I think we're still marking it as experimental, aren't we?
Correct. Yeah, it's marked as experimental.
That may change during the V6 life cycle, but it's going into this. It's not going to be removed like we put on the agenda to discuss, but it's going in as experimental for now, which means that it's not something that you should treat as stable as the other features. Any other questions? Okay. Let's
They
wrap
say
up the meeting.
thanks, but other than that, I think we're good.
Great. Well, we've got 4 minutes to spare. So thanks everyone for joining us. Thanks everyone for listening in on the live stream.
Bye.
See you next week at a different time slot.
Thanks. Bye.
Yeah. As a reminder, next week's meeting will be at
Call
4 p.m.
recording
UTC.
off.